Hi, this is Coast Connections, and I'm Brian Anderson. My guests tonight are Dr. Mark Morris and Tom Davies, and I understand you're with the Perfect Storm group, which sounds ominous, but Tom, maybe you could tell me how that started?
Yes, ever since 2009, there's been a group of community organizations that have been doing whatever they could to advocate for the improvement of delivery of health services in Oceanside. And the group consisted of the two mayors of Qualicum Beach and Parksville, the RDN chair, the Division of Family Practice, 4 Rotary clubs, Chambers of Commerce, and Island Health. And this is a pretty connected group that is very interested in seeing that the delivery of healthcare services suits the needs and the wants of our folks. Dr. Mark was representing the Division of Family Practice, Oceanside Division of Family Practice, in September of 2015, and we invited him to speak. And what he told us is that we're 6 doctors short, I believe it was 7 at that time, and that we're actually in what he described as a perfect storm. And it was a critical situation because each doctor represents quite a lot of people, and there were several thousand people that were without doctors in the community. And when he mentioned the term perfect storm, that was sort of the hook for us as community people involved in the community to want to do something to help with the recruitment and the retention of doctors in the Oceanside area. And so that group was formed, and we've been working for the last, since September 15th, 2015 till now, to move forward with trying to solve our own problem.
Now, Dr. Mark, you mentioned earlier that this isn't necessarily an issue that's totally related just to Oceanside, but it's province-wide?
Yeah, this is probably North America-wide, definitely all across Canada, BC, and on the island. Island Health, they share job posting for family physicians, and they have over 60 postings for basically clinics who are looking for family physicians. In the area that we represent, Oceanside, which is between Nanaimo and the Comox Valley, we have 8 physician openings. So unfortunately, we're seeing things getting worse and not better.
So comparatively, you mentioned there's 8 openings or 6 openings in Oceanside?
Originally there were 6, but since we formed the group, there's actually 8 openings now. Yeah.
So how many openings would there be in Nanaimo?
Well, currently there's 11 positions opening. So Nanaimo, with a larger population, 11 physicians. With Oceanside having a much smaller population, we need that many physicians. It's quite a difficult ordeal for our tiny community.
Now, it's probably more important for Tom and I because we're entering that phase of life where, in the last 20 years or 20% of your life, you use up 80% of your medical requirements.
Yeah, and in fact, they've done studies looking at the benefits of having a family physician, and the studies do show that with a physician, we can help reduce healthcare costs. So that's reducing visits to the emergency room, reducing the need for treatments later on down the road. So well studied, well supported that family physicians can make a difference.
So how do you go about recruiting people to necessarily move to your community?
Yeah, and that's a good question, and I think we can look at it on various levels. We can look at it on a provincial level, we can look at it on a community level. I won't go into too much depth on what is happening at a provincial level, but I'll speak more to a community level. As Tom had mentioned, we had stakeholders coming together to have this Perfect Storm group. And with that, we've developed recruitment tools, so a video, which we'll have the link to. We've developed brochures. We've gone out to other communities to see exactly how they've addressed the doctor shortage. And right now, we're in talks on developing a new community-based facility that would be looking at a team-based care approach on addressing healthcare issues, but also helping recruit doctors.
So you'd think that with our generally lower housing costs, say, than some areas on the mainland, that this would be attractive for doctors and an attractive place for them to move to.
Yeah, it is an attractive area when we look at comparisons to Vancouver, but the cost of living is still quite high. And when we have physicians who are graduating, they have high debt loads. And so a lot of them are looking at very lucrative areas, so a lot going from family practice into specialties to pay off their debts. And then others going to very remote areas or working in the hospital where they tend to get paid more money. But you're right, I think this is such a beautiful area in central Vancouver Island that it attracted me. And when we bring physicians and we bring candidates here, they always remark on what a beautiful area it is.
So I guess I don't want to get off topic, but when you're talking about Doctors Without Borders, those are more established doctors that have got basically paid off those debts and can go out and do that.
Yeah, and we can see the established doctors, unfortunately they're a dying breed, and when we're looking at recruiting physicians, we often have to recruit 1.5 to cover the current physician load, because the newer generation of physicians, and I don't blame them, they want work-life balance. They want to be able to leave the office and kind of leave the paperwork. So yeah, 1.5 is what we're looking at for each physician who's retiring now.
Yeah, and it's interesting though too that for example, I read an article in the paper the other day that Victoria has 60,000 people down there who do not have doctors. So that equates out to if you have 1,500 patients per doc, that's 40 doctors short. We're short here as well, and it isn't just the good beaches that are going to attract the folks. It's the lifestyle that the folks are looking for themselves. You know, when they are looking at a community, they're looking also at the other options that they have. For example, UBC Medical School will graduate 288 doctors this year. That sounds like a fine number, and it is a fine number. But when you also, the flip side of that is that around 450 are going to be either retiring or leaving or moving on or something else. So what we have is a net loss. So if the community is going to be competitive in recruiting doctors, because the demand for doctors is so high, then we have to do something that's creative and out of the box in order to have doctors take a look at us, so that we become the location of choice for the go-to place. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we're facing this in a number of industries: nurses, retiring firemen, a number of occupations just don't have the new level of recruits coming in that they have had historically.
The other thing too, as far from a community point of view, is that a lot of comments are made is why isn't the provincial government handling all these things throughout the province? And we could have that debate for months and months, and we'd never come up with the answer for it. The truth of the matter is that if communities want to attract doctors to their community, then the community has to say, okay, we're going to take charge of this ourselves and work with partners such as the Division of Family Practice, such as Island Health, such as the political leaders in the community. And I forgot to mention MLA Stillwell is a member of the Perfect Storm group as well. And also the service clubs are getting on board, that type of thing. So we're in the process of trying to creating an awareness that if we're going to be looking after our long-term health needs, this community has to dig deep and create their own solutions for it. We'll get help from our partners, but this has to be a community-driven thing, or we're going to be paddling in a canoe that's going to be going nowhere for a long, long time.
We're going back up the Englishman River.
Up the Englishman River, yeah.
So, Dr. Mark, when the community sort of comes forward and supports something like this, do you find that very encouraging?
I do, and I think you always run the risk when you have such a daunting problem that people get basically to a point where they're afraid to try. So we still have a very motivated public, and we've had successes. We've had 2 physicians who have agreed to come to Oceanside. So this is hot off the presses, and we'll be having them coming in the fall. Unfortunately, we're still having physicians who are retiring either for reasons of health issues, or for some who are relocating to a larger center. So while we're making gains, there's still a lot of work to do. So we really need the public to help support us in this battle.
So are you looking for more public support, or I assume that the Perfect Storm group is a society?
Well, we've actually got a healthcare foundation that we're developing, Parksville Qualicum Healthcare Foundation, and we definitely want people to be involved, and we're going to start doing membership drives and looking at taking donations, with the idea that this community-based facility will be basically fundraised by the community, so it will be community-owned, community-operated.
So you're actually talking bricks and mortar as well as
and that's,
doctors.
When we look at the interviews that we've had with physicians who have chosen to go to different areas, they want to work at larger centers. They want team-based care. They want the technology. They want basically what they were trained with. And having them come back to a 1950s, 1970s type setup isn't going to help recruit. So we have to be forward thinking and looking at, we need to develop a clinic, a facility where we can attract those doctors. So it's part of the piece, but having the community support will also help retain the physicians we have currently.
Yeah, and that's really an important part that Mark just finished up on there. We've got a lot of fantastic doctors in the community that do just great work. And we certainly need to find ways of paying equal attention to the group of existing doctors that we have, so that we can keep them here for the longer term. Because every time you lose one, there's a number of people that are orphan patients, And there was one doctor who had an ad in the paper a couple of weeks ago that said, "Listen, I'm sorry, I tried to find a replacement. I haven't got it. I'm sorry, Lee, you're on your own." And it was just a reality. It wasn't that person's fault. They tried their best. And so when you're talking the reality, then you're talking about another 1,000, 1,500 people who say, "Okay, what do I do now?" So.
Yeah,
and you're not necessarily talking about like critical care where you need a hospital, but general GP practices to deal with people's ongoing health issues.
And what can essentially happen is you get a trickle down or trickle up, depending on where you're looking. For physicians who are no longer practicing and their patients don't have a physician, they'll often use services like the emergency or like what we have in Oceanside, the urgent care. I mean, these are great facilities, great physicians that work there, but they're being overloaded by patients who essentially could be treated in a community clinic. So we're seeing that, and then I suspect down the road, the people who aren't followed by a family physician or a nurse practitioner are going to have health issues that require more surgeries, more admissions to hospital. So I think we're going to start seeing more and more of that as time goes on.
So if you're a contributor, does that give you priority appointments? It's a bit facetious.
Well, I think when we look at it and we try and triage, one of the hardest things we have now is people calling the clinic and saying, "I need a family doctor." So when I worked with the Oceanside division, we tried to triage and see who is the most critical, who is at the highest risk, and then attaching them with a family physician. You can only go so far before the physicians are stretched to a point where they can't look after their own patients. And I think one of the doctors we had before was so overwhelmed that they got to a point where they left the community because they found it too stressful. So we have to be mindful that we can't keep adding patients to our rosters because we have to make sure that it's not a 4-week, not a 6-week wait time to see people in follow-up.
You know, you raised a good question about the contributors. You know, I know you're just making the funny there, and but you know, what we're blessed with in this community of Oceanside is people who are healthy. For example, we heard a report, for example, that the Oceanside people, on a comparative level, with people the same age in other parts of the province, were about 10 years younger, and part of this because the folks who are driving the Harleys these days got gray hair and ponytails. The bicycle riders, there's all kinds of active things going on there. You're walking, hiking, golfing, skiing. There's just so much, aquafit, the whole works. That we're a very healthy community, but because of we are human, we have chronic problems that need to be attended to as well. So. What we believe that we have is a whole pile of people out there that we have to make aware that this is a problem, and we do need their help. We need their financial help, and we need volunteers. We need people with experience on what to do and how to do it, because we can only do so much. We can only do so much, and so there will be a call for a lot of volunteers to come in and not only contribute financially, but contribute in kind or with their time, that sort of stuff. That's how you build a community clinic. A multidisciplinary clinic will hopefully, if you and I go there, that we see our doc, and our doc will send us down the hall to see somebody else, or have it sent in a location where it's central to, so the person can get the blood work done, and that sort of stuff too. So.
And actually, one thought just occurred to me, that I think Parksville Qualicum, there's a higher percentage demographically of retirees than, say, Nanaimo has, because it's just sort of catered to that kind of market.
I think the oldest, or one of the oldest communities in Canada, and I think the town of Qualicum, the city of Parksville, and the other surrounding areas have done a great job. It's a beautiful place for people to retire, but we want to make sure that we're able to take care of the people who retire there. On the flip side, when we do have older patients, they tend to be more complex, and the newer grads that we have coming in maybe don't have that experience yet and feel comfortable. So we want to keep our doctors here, mentor the new grads till they feel comfortable dealing with the more complex conditions, and then it's a win-win for the community as well as the physicians.
Now, I thought it went the other way around, that getting a younger doctor meant you had somebody that was closer to training and more up to date. But that doesn't necessarily follow?
Yeah, I think when we look at it, and there's different skill sets, like using the new electronic medical records, that I think the newer grads are more capable, more competent. But it takes years of training before physicians are comfortable dealing with patients. And as I get to know someone, I learn more about, their personality, more about their medical history. So it makes me a better doctor the longer I know someone. So yeah, I think you're right, there is a bit of a trade-off between the newer and the older doctors, but yeah, I think the older doctors, and I consider myself one of them, still are the ones to treat. Yeah.
Well, I think you still need a bit more gray hair, but you're not necessarily Marcus Welby, but I guess getting there.
I get that reference, so maybe I am old enough.
So what are the next steps, I guess, for the group?
I think the next steps are to get our foundation solidified. We're registered with the foundation. The Qualicum Beach Parksville Healthcare Foundation is what it's called. And once we get that, we see that being the business arm of this whole project. So the Perfect Storm Group is trying to learn all we can so that we can get some way of engaging the public. And one of the tried and true and tested ways is be able to have a foundation there where you can issue tax receipts for people who do donate. That's very important, you know. But to get the folks on board and have the volunteers and have the multidisciplinary clinics, and also take care of the current doctors that we have is certainly we're very focused on that objective.
And I think you mentioned you didn't have a website developed just yet, so that might be one of the volunteers you'd be looking for. Is somebody that could
plug,
do that.
Getting people, and I think, as Tom mentioned, we're really looking for skill sets as well. So I think money is important, but we want the skill set, we want commitment, we want people to, you know, when they're having the debates on the election saying, you know, we need more family physicians, we need more nurse practitioners, we need more healthcare. So I think it's not just one thing, but it's a multitude we're looking at.
So, and you just mentioned elections. So is this having any play in the current provincial election?
Well, and I can't speak on the provincial level, but I know locally this is one of the key topic areas, and we've been very fortunate with our group. We've had, you know, the local MLA Michelle Stillwell involved. We've had the Ministry of Health involved, and I think we've been working with really great people. It's a very difficult problem to solve. And while we've made some strides, I think there's still work to be done.
And I think it's important to know too that when we started this off in September of 2015, what do we know about all this sort of stuff? You know, as community folks, this is a brand new territory for us, and so we've been spending the last year and a bit going out and checking out what other people are doing so we can get some ideas. Because if you're going to be asking people to help, we have to have a story, a credible story to tell them. And I think we have that credible story right now, in that if we can develop something that's going to look after the recruitment, multidisciplinary doctors, so that we can service the needs of people who just want their checkup, and also those who have chronic diseases and that sort of stuff that the doctors can handle, and also look at ways of maybe trying things a little bit different, because if we're going to go on with this perpetual problem of doctor shortages for a while, how can we get help to the doctors, such as with nurse practitioners or nurses, and can they do some of the things to help the doctors to relieve their loads? But the other thing too that's important to note is that the doctors graduating, they want a lifestyle. They want to be able to come and do their doctoring and go home. So the benefit and the attraction to a community clinic is somebody looks after the business part of it for them. So they don't have to worry about that.
And you don't have an hour commute.
And you don't have an hour commute. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's more, and it's funny, the play on words just sort of came to me. It's more a generic issue than it is a geriatric issue. But I think it's really key that the community be involved, because you get more sponsorship and you get more involvement in things.
Yeah, I think if we didn't have the community support, we really wouldn't have gone anywhere. And it's based on the community that we're having the successes that we're moving forward with this project. So we're really thankful for all the community support, everyone who's been involved so far with the project.
And it sounds like you're in the early days, but I just want to harp back to one comment you made, that you've already got some success, and that you've got 2 doctors that have committed to moving to the Oceanside area.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it was the recruitment video. When I went to introduce myself, they recognized me from the video. So something nowadays with the internet and YouTube, they're able to go online, see the video and say, you know, this reminds me of where I grew up. And then they decided they would make a visit, and then we had our community partners, we had everybody rolling out the red carpet, and we were able to convince them to come here. So yeah, so successes so far, but we're still trying to build, especially when it comes to a community clinic that's locally owned and operated.
So would that be located in sort of central, like downtown Parksville, or do you have a location yet?
Well, right now we're saying that Qualicum Beach is the place because, and part of the reason for that is the Oceanside Health Center, which has much of those things that we also need up in Qualicum Beach, is bursting at the seams because it's been used so extensively. So it just makes sense to have the community multidisciplinary clinic based in Qualicum Beach.
And that's pretty central to anybody in Parksville or the surrounding areas.
Yeah, it's not a very long drive when we're looking at going from Parksville to Qualicum. And the idea, especially Qualicum, which has an older age population, is we want to make sure that people are able to access the services. So we're looking at land, and maybe the town will have an offer of some land we can look at that's central, that's in walking distance for a lot of people.
And to some folks from around the area here, getting to a place like that can be difficult. Some get rides, but the transportation system also will allow them to use the public transportation, and certainly looking at getting routes and changing routes, that sort of stuff, to accommodate those people who need to access that sort of facility. But when you drop them off in downtown, they can get all their stuff done there. Go to the drugstore, go to the physiotherapist, go to get their blood work done, and this is after they've seen their doctor, of course, to get all this stuff done. Well, I thought I'd better mention you guys there.
Well, maybe you just want to go and get your blood work done and take it into the doctor.
Yeah.
I don't think it quite works that way, but...
Not quite.
Yeah.
Usually not.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds really interesting. I guess maybe it makes it more attractive for people in Nanaimo to move to Oceanside as well, or work here or retire there.
Yeah, we're trying to make it a very unique model that other areas can take and use. So it's really an exciting time to be developing this project, and we're trying to also make it sustainable so that we can actually grow the physicians, so looking at a residency program where they're trained, and then again, community owned, so getting support from the community so we can take off the burden from some of the ministry as well.
Well, this may have gone quickly for you because you're probably not as used to it necessarily as I am, but this has been Coast Connections. And I'd like to thank you for coming down, Dr. Mark Morris and Tom Davies.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
We'll have some information on, I think, your phone number. And if not, if you look up the Postal Storm group on the internet, you'll be able to find information on the group, and there's a phone number. And if anybody has any ideas out there for ideas or suggestions for a topic, there'll be an email address that you could send in your suggestions. And so other than that, well, thank you for coming down.
Yes, thanks for having us.